Let's talk about three obscure jazz records today, guys. Greg from the Vinyl Rundown, and three records that sort of bubbled to the top of my collection recently for three different strange reasons. Two artists you've heard of, one you probably haven't heard of. Let's start with this one. So, last Sunday, I'm coming home from the thrift stores, empty-handed, disappointed again, and I hear this record on the radio. They're actually reviewing this record on NPR on a Sunday. Kind of strange because this record by Oscar Peterson, Motions and Emotions, kind of an obscure record, and turns out the record label MPS is reissuing it as a 50th anniversary reissue, so 1969. But of all records, I mean, there's a million reissues every year. Why are they reviewing this one? Not really sure, but as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, hey, I think I have this record at home. I bought it at a thrift shop, the one I was just leaving a few months ago. Didn't really pay much attention to it, but now I'm hearing this review and it sounds like, hey, maybe I should go home and give it a listen. So that's what I did. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. Motions and Emotions, 1969. Oscar Peterson, the legendary jazz piano player, MPS Records. Nice picture of Oscar inside the gatefold. And some other some other shots of Oscar and etc. So first of all, this cover, pretty abstract. It looks like it's flowing water or something, but pretty abstract for an Oscar Peterson record. Oscar Peterson, really a traditional piano player, nothing abstract or free jazz about his music at all, so you don't typically see that kind of abstract art associated with him. Oscar Peterson I would describe as being very elegant, kind of stately, just all around good piano player, but nothing super innovative that's going to bend your ear with anything weird or fusiony or abstract. So that's why this record is a little unusual. It's paired with a arranger, Klaus Ogerman, and I actually featured a similar record in my Tag video, 2019 Tag, which was the same conductor-arranger, Klaus Ogerman, with Bill Evans. So classic piano player, plus this guy Ogerman, plus kind of a big symphony orchestra. An unusual setting for a piano player. In this case, it's very lush strings behind the piano, and they're just doing kind of pop classics. So there's a couple of Beatles tunes on here. Yesterday, Eleanor Rigby. Other popular songs from that era, Ode to Billy Joe by Bobby Gentry, some Henry Mancini, By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Jimmy Webb, some Burt Bacharach, just kind of mellow pop hits, really lush strings. The reviewer on NPR, he actually didn't love the record, and it's not one of Oscar Peterson's greatest pieces by any means, but it's very mellow. The strings are very relaxing. It's a good record to kind of unwind at the end of the day. Lush strings. All right, so that's record number one. Record number two, 1972, Milt Jackson, the famous vibe player. It's called Sunflower. And this record kind of changed my opinion on this CTI label. CTI Records is named after Creed Taylor, who was a famous jazz producer. He founded Impulse Records, he signed John Coltrane, and then later on he came up with the CTI label. So 1970s kind of fusion-y era, not classic jazz like you're going to get from the 50s and 60s. And so that's why initially I was kind of turned off to this label, but after hearing this record and also the Diodato that I did in my other video, these are both on CTI. And you can see the similarity, really glossy cover, gatefold, abstract photography. After hearing this record, my ears are a little wider, open wider to the CTI label stuff. Very studio produced sound, close mic'd, very slick kind of a sound. But good music. And check out who plays on this record, because these are some monster players. You get these guys together anytime, it's probably going to be a good session. Herbie Hancock, hopefully you know he plays piano. I've seen 3 or 4 times Freddie Hubbard, great trumpet player from Blue Note days. Ron Carter, great bass player. Billy Cobham. So that is like a who's who of of great jazz people from that era. So Milt Jackson's Sunflower, obscure record, I think, but actually it's not bad. And both of those I got for $1 at different thrift stores. Then another obscure record and an obscure musician. Okay, you see there's a lot of scribbling on here. And it says Joachim, Kuhn, etc., etc., 1985, free jazz. So the guy at the record store actually wrote right on the cover, or the outer sleeve. And actually I appreciate that because I hadn't heard of this record. And I picked it up really because, okay, the description sounds interesting, and I'm happy that the guy running the store gives us a little curation, gives us a little tips on what might be good. So I pulled this out of the collection the other day, and I'm trying to make sense of this cover and all this stuff. What is all that? So it says Joachim Kuhn, and then the names of the other players, and it's just repeated over and over and over. And then what is all this scribbling here? This looks like hieroglyphics. I was staring at this trying to figure out what it meant. And then eventually I saw what it said up at the top there. Let's see, get it in focus because it's looking for a face to focus on. The title of the record is hidden at the very top, easy to read. Okay, the joke's on me. This cover is not easy to read at all, but I eventually figured it out. So Joachim Kuhn is a kind of a free jazz, avant-garde jazz piano player. I think he's German. And his discography is fantastic. He's played with everybody you can think of, but for some reason I'm just not that familiar with him. So $5.99. It was on sale, I think, for 30% off on Record Store Day. So $4 for a good jazz record I never heard of. It's somebody I'm going to check out and experiment on, so that's cool. So there's 3 obscure jazz records, guys. And thanks for watching, and I will check you next time. Please consider subscribing, and I am interested in your comments if you have any. Thanks again.